Hi everyone, welcome to our learning video for Quality Text Week 4. This week we'll be looking at the story Rosie Revere, Engineer. On Monday we are going to identify the different parts of the cover and predict what the book might be about. On Tuesday we are going to look at the vocabulary in the story and make a list of the words that you don't understand and find their meaning using different strategies like we did last week. On Wednesday, we're going to look at what we think the author's purpose of the text is. On Thursday, we will be looking at the problem in the story and how the problem gets solved, or does the problem get solved? And on Friday, we'll be talking about what your favourite part in the story is. Today is Monday and it is our first day having a look at the story Rosie Revere, Engineer. Today we are learning about the information found on the cover of a fiction book, just like we did with Rodney Loses It. So today we're going to have a look at what information we can find by looking at the front cover. Do you remember some information we found when we looked at the front cover of Rodney Loses It? Do you remember how we found that information? We're going to have another go today. This week's book is called Rosie Revere, Engineer. Have a look at the front cover and think about what you think this book might be about. Let's have a look at the title and illustrations. Who is Rosie? Why is the man on the cover floating? What does the word engineer mean? We know engineer is someone who makes or designs engines and machines. So what do you think Rosie enjoys doing if she's called Rosie Revere, Engineer? I want you to have a look at the front cover and make some predictions about what's going to happen in the story. And why do you think these things are going to happen based off the front cover? Let's have a look at the front cover of the book. We can see a title on the front cover of the book. We can see a girl who we think is Rosie. We can see a man floating who we're not too sure who he is yet. What else can you see on the cover? We can see the name of the author and the name of the illustrator. What else can we see on the cover? There are lots of little things down the bottom. I wonder what they are. I wonder what they're used for. I wonder why they've got a man floating on the cover. Maybe it's so it draws people's attention towards the book, so they think, I want to read this story to find out why there's a man floating on the cover. What do you think? Can you make any connections to the book Rosie Revere, Engineer? So we know an engineer is someone who builds things and makes things. Have you ever made something before? Have you ever read a story about someone who's made something before? Have you ever read a story about a little girl who looks a bit like Rosie? What are some connections that you can make to this story? From the word engineer in the title, we know this book is about someone who creates things. Imagine you had the chance to be an engineer. What would you create? Your task is to draw a picture of something that you would create if you had the chance to be an engineer and write about it. Once you have finished your task, you can view the book on YouTube. If you're having trouble accessing the link, you can just search in YouTube, Rosie Revere, Engineer, Read Aloud. Hello everyone and welcome to Tuesday's lesson. Today we are learning to identify words in the text that we don't understand and use strategies to determine their meaning. We're going to have a go at using strategy 1, you're looking at the illustration to give us an answer to our unknown word. So the first word we're going to have a look at is the word python. And we're going to see if we can use the picture to help us figure out what the word python might be. So on this page, she has gone to visit her Uncle Fred, the zookeeper, and she's created a cheddar cheese spray to keep the pythons away. So if we're trying to figure out what a python might be, by her creating a cheddar cheese spray, do we think, and to keep something away, do we think it's going to be something like a book that she wants to keep away? Or do you think she's going to be trying to keep away the pencils? If we have a look on the page, the thing that she's most likely trying to keep away is the snake. So I think we can gather from the picture that she's trying to keep away the snake. And that's what the word python is. A python is a snake. We are going to have a look at the second strategy, which is using what you already know about words to figure out unknown words in the story. So the word we're focusing on today is lingers. On this page, Rosie's aunt has come to visit and she says the only thing left on her list of things to do is to fly. But she says time never lingers as long as it seems. What do we think the word lingers means from this statement? If she's saying time never lingers as long as it seems, we might think lingers reminds us of the word long. So she might be saying something like time doesn't stay around as long as you may think. Lingers means for something to be slow or to take a long time. So we might think that the word long reminds us of lingers, and we can realize that she's just trying to say that time doesn't stay around for as long as we may think. It goes really quickly, and that's why she hasn't had the chance to fly yet. Strategy 3 is to use your understanding of what is happening in the story to work out what a word might mean. So the word you are trying to figure out on this page is gizmos. So on this page, it's talking about how Rosie sits in her attic and makes gizmos and gadgets. So if we have a look at the picture and think about this story, so we know Rosie's an engineer and she likes to make lots of different things. She likes to make different gizmos and different gadgets. So what do we think a gizmo could be? If you have a look at the picture, there are lots of different things she's created. So I think you can kind of gather that a gizmo is something that she's created, and they're talking about her making something. So we know that a gizmo is something she's made. So let's have a look at the picture again. When we speak about a gizmo, it's when you make something and you don't remember its name. Do you think that looking at all of the things that Rosie's made, she'd remember the names of all of her different gizmos and gadgets? That's why it's called a gizmo. So it's something that she's made but doesn't exactly remember the name. We are going to use strategy 4, check a dictionary or thesaurus to figure out what the word perplexed means. So on this page of the story, Rosie says that she feels baffled, embarrassed, and perplexed. So perplexed is a pretty tricky word that some of you might not know, and it's a little bit hard to tell what perplexed means. just from looking at the pictures in the story for this one. So that might mean you'd need to use a dictionary or a thesaurus to work out what the word means. So what I've done, I've used the Children's Dictionary to search up the word perplexed. And it says to make something difficult, it's when something is difficult to understand. So perplexed kind of means like confused. So if we replace the word perplexed with confused, let's see if that makes sense. Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, confused. I think it makes sense. So she's confused because she failed and she didn't understand why her aunt was so proud of her. So I think by looking up the word perplexed, we can see that it kind of means the same thing as confused. Your task for today is to go back through this week's quality text and create a list of words you don't understand. Have a go at using the strategies we just looked at to work out your words. Hello everyone, welcome to Wednesday's lesson. Today we are learning to identify the author's purpose of a text. In our video last week, we spoke about some of the features and differences between fiction and non-fiction text. We spoke about how a fiction text is something that is made up, and the author will generally write a fiction text for the purpose of entertaining us. We also spoke about how a non-fiction text is something that is real and informs us or gives us facts about something. I want you to have a look at some of the features of a fiction and a non-fiction text. From looking at these features, do you think Rosie Revere Engineer is a fiction or a non-fiction text? Does it have true facts or is it made up? Does it inform you about things? Does it teach you about things? Or is it there to entertain you? Does it have actual photographs or does it have illustrations? What kind of a text do you think Rosie Revere Engineer is? Let's have a look at some of the illustrations from our text for this week. In the first picture, you can see a man floating in the air. This is because Rosie created helium pants for her uncle. Do you think helium pants are a real thing? Is this a photograph taken of a man really flying with helium pants, or is it an illustration to entertain us? I think it's an illustration to entertain us. Helium pants aren't real. Let's have a look at the second picture. Rosie is trying to keep away the python by using cheese. Does cheese really keep pythons away? I don't think so. I think they have used cheese to keep the pythons away because it's pretty funny and it might entertain the readers. Your task for today is to answer the following questions. You need to answer what type of text it is. So is it a fiction text or a non-fiction text? How do you know this? How do you know it's a fiction text or a non-fiction text? What is the author's purpose of the story? Why did the author write the story? Was it to give us information about engineers? Was it to entertain us? Why did the author write the story? Hello everyone, welcome to Thursday's lesson. Today we are learning about the problems in fiction stories. Today we are learning about the problems in fiction books. Most fiction books have problems and the problems usually get solved. Who remembers the problem in this story? Let's have a look at the picture. It might help us to remember what the problem was. So if we have a look at the picture, we can see a man pointing and laughing at Rosie. Who remembers who that man is and why he was pointing and laughing at Rosie? Take a second to think about it. So the man pointing and laughing at Rosie was her Uncle Fred. She created a cheese hat for him to keep the pythons away, as he's the zookeeper. But once she gave it to him, he started laughing at her invention, which made Rosie really embarrassed and upset. Would you feel embarrassed and upset too if you created something and you were really proud of it and someone laughed at you? That's when Rosie decided she didn't want to be an inventor anymore, an engineer, and she wanted to keep her dreams to herself. We worked out that the problem in the story was that when Rosie created a cheese hat to keep the pythons away, her uncle laughed at her. This really upset Rosie and crushed her dreams of becoming an inventor. We are going to look at how the problem gets solved in the story. So, by looking at these pictures, you might be reminded of how the problem was solved. Rosie's aunt has come to visit her, and she too is an inventor. Rosie's aunt's dream is to fly, so Rosie creates a flying invention for her to use. When the invention fails, Rosie's aunt gives her a hug and explains that things may not always work out on the first go, and you may need to try and try again until you get it right. This makes Rosie feel a lot better and helps to solve her problem, because last time she failed at something and someone was laughing at her, she got upset and quit. But this time her auntie has encouraged her to keep on going even when she makes a mistake. Have you ever had to keep trying with something when you didn't get it the first go? Have you ever had a problem like Rosie's problem? Have you ever had to keep on trying and trying at something until you got it right? How did your problem get solved? Have you ever made something before and you thought it was really great and other people laughed at you? How did that make you feel? How did you solve your problem? Your task is to draw about a problem that you've had, like Rosie's problem, and how you solved the problem. You also need to write about it. Hello everyone, welcome to Friday's lesson. Today we are learning about responding to fiction stories. Today we are going to be responding to the book Rosie Revere Engineer. This means we're going to say what we like about the book and we need to give reasons why we like these things. There are lots of different reasons why someone might like a book. Sometimes you might like a book because it's funny and it makes you laugh. Sometimes you might like a book because it has some interesting pictures or some funny things happen that you don't usually see. Sometimes you might like a book because it reminds you of something that you already know or something that you've done before. So you may have made some connections to the book which makes you like the book. So let's have a look at these pictures and see what we might like about this book. So you might like the book because it's about a young girl and you are all young kids. It might remind you of yourselves at school, just like in the picture up the top. You might like this book because it might remind you of a time that you tried really, really hard to figure something out or really hard to make something, just like we can see Rosie and her aunt working on their invention. You might also like this book because it has some pretty funny pictures in it and some things that you don't usually see could happen, just like Rosie flying her uncle with his helium pants on. You might think that's a really funny picture and that's why you like the book. Your task for today is to draw a picture of your favourite part in the story. It might be one of the parts that we just looked at. It might be the part of the man flying in his helium pants, or it might be Rosie and her aunt working on their invention. Have a think about what your favourite part in the story is and draw a picture of it. Share it with a family member and tell them why you liked that part. You also need to write about your drawing. And don't forget to include why that is your favourite part. Did you like it because it made you laugh? Was it your favourite part because you could relate to it and you had done something similar before? I hope you enjoyed that story and I look forward to sharing another story with you next week.